Hey guys, welcome back to more neighbor Reddit stories. Imagine leaving for a 2-week family vacation and coming home to find an electric fence running straight through your property, with signs saying reclaimed land and trespassers will be shocked. What do you even do when someone literally fences off a part of your life? Let's dive right into the video. So I got a pretty decently sized property, and part of the reason for that is I live on a corner lot, which where I live means a bigger property. Not by much, but enough that it seems to bother some people that complain people like me get extra space. Another thing I have that is a little unique is a well-tended garden in my yard. I don't mean just flowers either, I grow my own vegetables, and trust me, to those that haven't done it themselves, it's not some easy passive hobby. Unless you know the feeling of spending months tending for it to not come in right, you don't know pure frustration. The other 95% of the time though, the garden is relaxing and great to spend time alone or even with my family. The woman that lives next to me is extremely entitled. I don't know how much about her husband, but I know that she is pushy and always complaining about everything. The biggest thing she likes to complain about most is that I have more property than she does. It changed from complaining though to her trying to claim that the reason I have more is because some of the property of mine is actually hers. She kept saying that I had stolen at least half her rightful property and that the survey markers had been moved or were wrong from the start. According to her, the original lot lines were different and someone had changed the official records. Well, I had already shown her official surveys I found and markers on the ground showing that my property was, well, mine. And that all the corner plots have a little extra. This didn't seem to make her happy, and instead she just kept claiming some of the land was her, and if I was a good neighbor, I would rectify it. She wanted to get under my skin, and part of the way she did that was making fun of my house and more specifically my garden, claiming it was horrible and I didn't know what I was doing, telling me my vegetables didn't look edible and anything else that she thinks could hurt me. Too bad for her though, I don't care what she has to say, I just need to be happy about myself. Of course I'm not some happy robot, but she makes me mildly frustrated, but I wouldn't want her to know that. My family left for a 2-week vacation, and I was not worried about the house since it's a nice neighborhood. I had the post office holding my mail until I got back, and I didn't think anything would happen. It's not the kind of place for break-ins and the like. Turns out that was not what I should have been worried about. Karen took advantage of me being gone for 2 full weeks because I came back to something that I did not know how to react to. There was a fence going through my property, cutting right into my garden. Not only was it a fence though, but there was a sign claiming reclaimed land and trespassers will be shocked. And that's when I figured out it was an electric fence. Now, this was in my backyard, so it was not obvious to a lot of neighbors what was going on, but trust me, if they saw, I would have been getting calls. Honestly, I was now scared to let my kids leave the house and play because the fence was so dangerous. I was so angry about the safety of them that I didn't even get a chance to mow my garden. The fence was going right through it, destroying most of what was growing, and maybe a few things at the end would be viable, but that was it. Most of the good veggies were now on her side, and she had no qualms picking for herself. I did not keep my mouth shut though and yelled at her. I was furious, angrier than I had been in years. Me, you think you can just get away with this fence and put my family in danger, huh? Plus stealing from me on top of that. I'm taking photos of what you're doing. Karen, take your little photos. All they will do is show that you were the one that stole my land to begin with. The vegetables are the least you can start to do for compensation. I would not need the electric fence if you could be a trustworthy neighbor. Me, do you really think that this is gonna end well for you? Like really, are you that delusional? Karen, if you try to challenge me, I will take you to court. I have better lawyers than you do. And watch your language, I'm recording everything you say for evidence. I was actually keeping exact notes on everything Karen was doing here. I put a call in as soon as I could about the fence, but like most of the government, things run slow. I knew I had to act here, but I also had to keep my cool. My first thought was wondering how she even got the fence up. It clearly was not legal, plus it was massive, so she didn't do it herself. It could have ruined her manicure. I took pictures from every angle and made sure to get the signs in it. I also noticed closer the damage done to my garden. Crops she clearly didn't like were pulled from the roots so they couldn't grow anymore, while others seemed to be all picked at once. Poorly too, so if I ever got my garden back, I would be back to square one. That night I went online and started reading everything I could about unsafe fencing and neighborhood disputes, and I learned more than I ever thought existed about the subject. I made a list: the utility company, code enforcement, fire department, even environmental services, just in case. I was not sure which one would take me seriously, but I was gonna try them all. Meanwhile, Karen had the audacity to stroll around her yard waving to neighbors, acting like she beat some a-hole that stole her land, claiming to people she had proved that I had fudged the property lines. I just knew the more she spoke, the worse it would be for her in the end. The next few days became a balancing act. I had to keep the kids safe while my husband helped me research the best way to proceed. I made notes and photos of what she had destroyed in my garden too for my notes. We even recorded a video showing how many steps from my door to the fence and how close our kids could accidentally get to it during normal play. Laws I saw, from what I understand, is that here you need proper warning signs and barriers before electric fencing, so that people can be warned about the danger at least. This thing though was just dangerous, and I didn't even want to think about if there was a storm or something. So I started reaching out to the city departments one by one. A lot of them wanted my documentation. One was just to tell the utility company that it was improperly wired to household electrical without any proper permits or safety equipment and could start a fire. I was promised people would come out and investigate, and while all of this happening, I didn't just sit back. I spent the evenings repairing what I could in the garden, planting new seeds on what was left of my side. It was therapeutic in a weird way. My husband helped me put up temporary markers and protective netting, and the kids even got involved. They loved being part of reclaiming the garden. It gave us all a sense of agency. Karen, meanwhile, started to get sloppy with maintaining the fence. She had tools, equipment scattered around that clearly extended onto my property, and some of the wiring looked hastily done. I noted everything. By the way, I forgot to mention previously, I had contacted the police and they did come over, but they claimed that they couldn't help me because according to them, this was just a civil dispute between neighbors and the police should not be bothered to deal with this. Have I already mentioned how useless the police is in this country? Anyway, every mistake she made, every overreach became part of my growing record, and soon it became impossible to argue that this was anything other than a dangerous illegal setup. Over the next week and a half, various inspectors started showing up, first the city code enforcement, then someone from the utility company, and finally a fire marshal. They walked the property, measured distances and checked the power connections, and of course asked questions about the fence that had been installed. Karen tried her usual charm offensive, insisting it was her property and she had the right to protect it. The fence violated multiple codes though, presented a clear electrical hazard and encroached on my land. One inspector even commented on how dangerous it was that someone would leave something like this near a family garden. 2 weeks later, Karen got official notice that she had to remove the fence immediately. Fines were assessed for unsafe electrical work, code violations, and encroachment. The city required her to reimburse any costs associated with inspection and damage. She fumed, of course, but there was nothing she could do. Eventually, she removed the fence entirely and slunk back to her own property, clearly embarrassed. The one thing she was still arguing, though, was that the property still belonged to her. Since all of these fines were about the fence existing and not the property, for this I got somebody from the city that would check the property lines. I sent her a certified letter with the results in it so she couldn't argue it. Once the danger was gone, I rebuilt my garden. This time I added a few raised beds, extra markers, and even a small decorative fence that was completely mine. The kids helped paint colorful signs on it, things like the kind of veggies that we were gonna grow. My youngest painted a picture of a snowman, which I don't know why, but whatever makes her happy. Not just because the garden was safe again, but because standing my ground and documenting everything had worked. So yeah, I did not have to be some nasty person and match her evil. Even I was surprised that it kind of worked out in the end. I was expecting these departments to refuse to help and make me take her to court or something, but word spread around the neighborhood about what happened. People who had been unsure before seemed to understand the situation better, and Karen now pretty much kept to herself after that. The whole thing died down, though she still gives me dirty looks when she sees me outside. The garden is doing better than ever, and every time I harvest tomatoes or pick fresh basil, I feel good about how I handled the situation. Things are not perfect, we still live next to each other though, and she still clearly resents me. But at least now, my kids can play safely in the yard again and my property lines are officially documented. Sometimes you just have to stand up for yourself the right way. And the next one is a beautiful malicious compliance story which is titled Don't touch my garbage. And by the way, if you enjoy the neighbor stories, please don't forget to like the video and leave me a comment, because that would be very much appreciated. So hey all, friendly neighborhood trash panda here, the giant kind, not the bandit kind, it'll make sense in a minute. Backstory: I work as a sanitation engineer with a primary focus on residential communities. I'm a garbage collector for houses. See, it makes sense now. Our collection is handled automatically. Our trucks have a hydraulic grabber that we control from inside the cab to grab carts and dump them into the truck, and we generally do not need to get out of the truck. We are not manually lifting and tossing garbage, so it's a pretty easy gig. What most people don't realize is the rules for garbage collection. There are lots of rules placed on homeowners and residents: what materials are acceptable, size limitations, if your garbage bin is not fully closed, and a big one is bin placement. All bins need to be 1 meter away from basically anything else, parked vehicles or other bins. This is to ensure ease of using the hydraulics to grab the bins, and also to prevent possible damage like scraping someone's car or busting a headlight or something. Generally, this is not an issue in that with a bit of practice you get good at grabbing bins even if they are parked right beside each other, or we will just hop out of our truck, move the bin a little so it's easy to grab, and then move it back. Reasoning for this is: 1. We are not a-holes and it's just a nice neighborly thing to do since myself and most of my colleagues live in the same community we work, and number 2, it's actually a lot of paperwork for us to fill out for violations, so it's significantly easier to just take the 30 seconds to move the bin than the 5 minutes to do all the paperwork to issue a violation ticket. Anyway, now for the story. We service a community that does both garbage and recycle on the same day: 2 bins, 2 trucks and 2 drivers. Most residents will put both bins side by side, touching each other, which is a violation, so what we will do is whichever truck gets to the location first will grab their bin, dump it, and then move it maybe a foot or 2 away from the other driver's bin, so the second driver has an easier time grabbing it. It saves time for us and makes things run smoother. And we don't get complaints from people until we do. A resident complained that we were moving her bins, and word traveled to the higher-ups. Myself and my colleague got disciplined, instructed to place bins back exactly where we got them from, and then were monitored via our dash cams. And for a few weeks to ensure compliance, and our supervisor would take a trip out to the specific resident who complained after our shift to ensure the bins were not moved. Not appreciated being disciplined so severely because some fat cow had to take 2 extra steps to get one of her bins, we complied to the letter with her request. Well, unfortunately for her, she had a habit of placing her bins side by side, which is a spacing violation. So then for 2 months every week we would get to her residence, bins are side by side, so we cannot grab them due to not enough space, fill out paperwork for a violation and place the violation ticket on her bins and not dump her bins, and she finally got the hint after about 2 months and started spacing her bins 3 feet apart and never complained about us moving her bins again. So she also had to pay several small fees for extra pickups, since by the time she figured it out, she had several bins full of garbage, and regulations are 1 bin dump per resident. Anything extra is a not insignificant fee per extra bag. And the next one is a fantastic petty revenge story that is titled "Start putting your groceries on the belt behind mine while I still have half a car to unload? I hope you're not in a rush." So there was an elderly person at the supermarket pretended not to see that I was still unloading my cart and just started putting her stuff on the belt. I tell her, "Excuse me, I'm not done yet." She mutters something but doesn't remove her stuff, just pulls it back while the belt is moving, so I proceed to put the rest of my items one by one, slowly spreading them on the belt. The belt keeps moving and she has to keep pulling her items back. I make small talk with the cashier. I pay in cash, actually usually use card because it's faster, but I guess not today. I also take my time bagging my groceries. Cannot have anything crushed in the bag now, can I? I make contact with the impatient elder as I leave and give her a little smile. She is fuming though. I swear boomers only have 2 speeds with shopping: snail pace when they are blocking other people for no reason, and lightning fast when they are ready to be served and they don't happen to be first in line. Toddlers are more self-aware. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I had moved into a new apartment with my little dog and cat and always made sure to ask my downstairs neighbor if he ever heard her, and he said he never heard anything from my unit ever. He moved out after about 4 months and a Karen moved in. At the time, I was 27 or 28, female, who had over 10 years of experience with toxic neighbors and roommates. 2 months after this Karen moved in, my dog was killed by a pit bull as I wrestled to get its jaws open. I still have scars on my fingers from where the pit bull's fangs dug into me as I was prying, and no, I was in so much trauma that I could not bear the idea of killing someone else's puppy when I knew that was a pit bull puppy that was not receiving proper training and he thought killing my dog was playing with a toy. I later found out someone else called and got animal services to arrive, and the owner had skipped out on the unit, disappearing legally and situationally to avoid criminal charges. I need an emotional support dog because of a very traumatic life, and part of that trauma will be related in another story. Anyway, I waited 6 months for a new puppy to be born after searching carefully for breeders I agreed with and the temperament and sensitivity of their parent dogs. I have owned 3 dogs of the same breed, larger Yorkshire Terrier, who are sensitive to mood swings, seizures and other medical conditions more than a lot of big dogs supposedly do. I don't tolerate a nitpicky dog. They are fully desensitized by me in preparation for my future children before this, and it was my first time experiencing the next problem. So my downstairs Karen neighbor had been friendly with me and chatted a lot, but I could tell she was one of those no-nonsense people, and she even tried to give me rules like no noise above me after 6 p.m. when I work early in the morning and would not be home until after 7, which meant I was not allowed to vacuum my own home except on my 1 day per month off of work. Usually those 1 days off were because I was sick from exhaustion, and they were recovery days, not cleaning ones. When she started complaining every single day about how her water was not hot enough and she demanded she should have entitlement to piping hot water, I realized she really was a Karen kind of woman. I let her know that I had adopted a new puppy and that I was going to do extensive training to make sure it was a good little neighbor, but asked her to bear with me. By the time the Karen moved out, she had been under me for 2 years, and I got my new puppy around halfway through that. At first, she would lie to me and tell me that she could never hear my dog at all. I knew my dog barked in separation anxiety from her personality for the first 30 to 45 minutes after I left for work around 10 a.m. and otherwise stopped. 6 months before the Karen moved out, my dog was barking constantly because the Karen would sit on her patio below mine and talk so loudly it was as if she were talking in the middle of my home. I then started getting text messages constantly about how my dog would not stop barking, and when her friend had a baby over, my dog barked so much it apparently traumatized the baby. I told her repeatedly, "Don't talk to my dog or it makes her bark even more." I told her repeatedly how loudly she talked on the patio at 6 to 8 in the morning when I worked a day and a night shift and she was waking me up. She would then claim that I was imagining things as she worked night shift and couldn't possibly be awake that early. I have Discord messages to my friends complaining about her to confirm that I was not crazy, but never showed her. She then tried to claim that my dog was disturbing all the neighbors and barked all day long. At this point, I had realized that she was a very entitled Karen, and thanks to my late hours, I found out her early morning or night shifts were total lies. The hours she would need to be home to impose the 6 p.m. curfew of noise was ridiculous, as she was coming home closer to 10 p.m. When she switched her tune of saying she needed silence in the morning is when she was waking me up at 6 in the morning. At this point, I put up those cameras that are free and use your internet to monitor whatever to your phone. I could confirm that my dog would bark for the 45 minutes at most, and then the only time she barked was maybe 4 or 5 times if someone was making strange loud noises below her. This meant someone pulling a cart or suitcase type bag clicking across the sidewalk, and she would bark until she couldn't hear it anymore, so maybe a minute at most. She had been fully trained with sonic noisemakers, dog whistles training, and even that open door at odd intervals tricks. I refuse to use electric shocks on my little girl or drugs when she's just fine for most of the day with her kitty brother. However, this is when the Karen's lies got even worse, and that is when the construction started. Every day for a week, that Karen was blowing up my phone saying my tiny dog was howling and screaming at all times. She even got the complex ownership to threaten me and tell me to control my dog with training, or else the complex would either evict me or forcibly remove my dog. This is illegal to do in my state, as she is medically signed off on an emotional support dog. I showed the office proof that my dog did not bark every single day, and even witnessed reports that I'd been so stressed I'd actually been taking my dog to work as a caregiver, and she was making my clients really happy every other day, further disproving the Karen's claims. And then over the 2 weeks I discovered that the noises that my dog did make were from the intense roof renovations that were going on and the extensive painting and landscaping efforts that made it sound like people were trying to break down our walls. I fully understood why my poor girl was freaking out. It even scared me so badly that the first time I heard them on the roof, I ran to the office with the sound recording and they explained the rooftops were being retard. The Karen would not give up, and the last time she texted me, it was something like how, "You need to control your dog. I cannot tolerate her barking at all times of the day and night. I will report you to the office and have the other neighbors sign a petition to get you evicted if you don't put her in doggy daycare or get rid of her." I replied with, "Sure, you pay for the doggy daycare, which is about $75 a day, and then she'll be quiet. Also, I know for a fact that you exaggerate and lie. My dog is with me half the times you claim she is barking, and I know you are friends with your next door neighbor whose dog barks even worse and louder than mine out on his porch. Don't contact me again or speak to me in passing. If you do, I will take this to more legal action," and then I blocked her. And well, a week later the office again tried to say that they were getting complaints, but admitted it was just one neighbor. I had made friends with the office worker and they actually loved my little dog. I even proved to them that she was only making a small amount of noise the days she was left home, and the stress this neighbor caused me with my new dog, who was supposed to reduce my clinical depression and anxiety, went through the roof. If it were not for my client letting me bring my dog for him to play with, I don't think I would have been able to stay sane. 4 months before Karen moved out, she tried one last trick to force me to deal with my dog her way by submitting a proposal to the Metro City District that I live in, where they order me to cease and desist my dog's noise and that I was not compliant with the required law ordinance. I could tell from the writing that she had exaggerated the time, frequency and duration of my dog's barking, much of which my cameras, which were set to noise sensitive, identified as 2 separate neighbor dogs barking and not mine. My latest dog has a very unique bark with a pitch that is undeniably hers and is the first dog I ever had with barking or separation issues, so I could easily tell the others were a medium and large barking dog. I laughed at the letter, which said to further enforce the complaint they would require a petition of all my immediate neighbors, all of which said they couldn't hear my dog in comparison to the other barkers and would not likely give their signatures to Karen. I decided if she ever did try anything else, I would report to the office that she had a breach of contract, 3 cats in her house, 2 of which were identical and were grounds for immediate eviction, but I waited to see if she would cross me one last time. I left off the city mandate letter and tossed the letter out after the Karen moved away and never faced any repercussions, but she gave me so many dirty looks. I then started living in my home my way after the text messages that I had sent about 2 weeks prior to getting the notice, and had been vacuuming, sweeping, mopping and doing any other cleaning I needed and wanted to do, ignoring her noise hour demands. I good-naturedly would not do anything after 9 PM, as I consider that normal for neighbors who do not have children in a building that is mostly cement blocks per unit. I'm now very happy to report that the neighbor who replaced the Karen actually loves my dog barks when I go and whenever someone is passing the area to the stairs of our shared entry. She apparently has some sort of paranoia of ghosts, and when they lived on the 2nd floor, she kept hearing footsteps on the roof at night. She says hearing my dog bark at normal loud things a dog should bark at helps her feel safe and comfortable, because my dog tells her if she's hearing things or actually has someone being too close for comfort in our entryway and outside our mutual porches. The best part is we did a noise test and she could not even hear my vacuum, my carpet shampooer, my blender or my TV, even when it was at a volume that was painful for my ears. So yeah, that Karen was such a dirty liar. I was not overly concerned about Karen's attempts after her first failure. It was mostly just a source of stress because of how often she bombarded me, or the wonder if another fake allegation against me would appear. I learned a lot in my teenage years and childhood about what is legally allowed, and that was unfortunately given a crash course the year before I found this little paradise complex. I also use legal rights knowledge as a caregiver to help my clients stay safe from abusive sources or ones that would extort them. I know how and when to react and to always have proof to back up my end. And yeah, Elverin Blood, thank you so much for sharing this story about this seriously, absolutely nightmarish Karen neighbor. However, I'm so happy for you that this neighbor moved away, and it seems like you got a much better neighbor in exchange now. Honestly, it can be so stressful to have stupid neighbors. I gotta say, at the moment I wouldn't say I'm blessed with good neighbors, but at least they are not loud or anything, so they don't really annoy me while I am recording. The only thing they could work on is their parking skills. And the next one is another petty revenge story, which is titled, "I caught my partner cheating, so I covered his whole house in glitter." So yeah, that's literally it. I caught him cheating by looking through his trash, literally, emails, and found some pretty graphic emails from other women, confirmed that he was with her that day through his Google Maps tracking. So I got every bit of loose glitter I owned, and I went to his house and scattered it in his bed, his couch, his chairs, his toilets, his clothes, and even his iron flat top stove. I know I'll be okay and I'm gonna heal, but guess who probably won't ever be able to fully get rid of all the glitter. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.